The Starship Enterprise, as we call it, is a spaceship patrolling somewhere out there. In the same way the naval vessels in the 18th century patrolled the outer reaches of the Empire.
I played a film producer, a film actor producer on an episode of The Lieutenant Show, which was produced by Gene Roddenberry, who then created Star Trek and had me in mind as a result of the Lieutenant thing for Mr. Spock.
The accent that I really liked of all the Scottish accents was a young fellow that was beside me during the war in Catterick Camp in England, up in Yorkshire. And we were there for 6 weeks, and for the first week I couldn't understand a word he said, you know. Jock, you know. And then I would just listen to him, and marvelous sounds. And he would say, Jesus Christ, Jimmy, you must come up to Aberdeen.
It was a stroke of luck, I think, in the casting. We just fell together so marvelously, and that chemistry just kind of came with it. It seemed like that each member of the cast, it just seemed to work.
NASA and Star Trek have been closely aligned all through the years. When we started, and NASA was starting about the same time, we were good for NASA because NASA was getting its funds from the government, and the government was being run by the people, and the people tuned in to Star Trek to take a look at space, so it was all synergistic. It was incredible. When there were rocket shots to the moon, our ratings went up.
No, as a matter of fact, somebody said, we got to keep these sets and send them to an amusement park. And you know that they were? That for the years before Star Trek came back, the original sets were sent out someplace, and they arrived at an amusement park and they charged admission for it. I wonder if that story is known. That's just as a little known fact, and you've got an exclusive.
The first movie was a disappointment to me, essentially because it wasn't what we did. No. It didn't make use of what we know how to do. And it was, I sympathize with the people who had to make that movie because it was 11 years after we had done any Star Trek. The feeling was we must not make this like a television show because people would say, well, that's a TV show. So they were worried about that. They wanted to make it very theatrical and very different. And it was different, and different to the detriment of the experience, I think.
None of us were pleased with one, of course. And we were very disappointed in that. In fact, when they did one, Gene Roddenberry called us in, and at least he was asking what we thought would be a good premise for the picture. And I told him at the time that I would like to see us do something not like City on the Edge of Forever, but a time warp. This was way back then. And I said, with a minimum of special effects, just only something used very slightly in it. And of course they didn't do that. They went to the big machines and special effects and lost the humanity. They didn't utilize the characters. As they couldn't believe, I think, that the audience was interested in the people and what they were doing.
It's really long for the Klingons. Thank God I wasn't playing a Klingon. That's 4 hours makeup. For Vulcan, it's about an hour and a half. That's not bad. For me, it was kind of like a meditation each morning, sitting there beside Leonard. We had booths beside each other. Good morning, good morning. Then we'd go into this sort of Zen thing of getting the ears on and the eyebrows and the hair. And you could see the character sort of coming to life while you were sitting there preparing to go on the set.
Yeah, what was your appearance at a Star Trek convention like?
Truly, a nightmare. Because you are not treated like yourself. You're treated like the character, and you're asked questions from the point of view of a Vulcan. So that's a little too much for me. You know, like, what does it feel like to go into warp speed? That's a movie. I'm a human from planet Earth. When your ears, do you feel pain in your ears? No, they're latex. So it was a little surreal to me.
But I must say they were very nice. Rick Berman made a present to me of the gold watch that Soren has, and it's a rather beautiful watch and rather an expensive one. And I took it to the jeweler and had them inscribe it with the line, "Time is the fire in which we burn," and the date of the death of Captain James T. Kirk.
I wanted to be in one of the Star Trek. I still want to do a Star Trek movie. I'm a Trekkie, and I've always wanted to beam up or shoot a Klingon, you know, have Kirk go, "Come on," you know, to me. I've always wanted to be part of the crew. Now, play with a dilithium crystal. Always wanted to do that.
The audience has come to expect a certain kind of repartee in chemistry. It's almost like George Burns and Gracie Allen doing what they do, and we do what we do, and the audience gets a kick out of it. We know how to do it. We've learned where the values are, where the chemistry is, and just how far we can go in ribbing each other and that kind of thing. And it's family. You're visiting family time after time.
It's just some combination of that just happened to be, you know, it's just has to be described only as lucky or some kind of magic. Waved a wand over Star Trek in the early days and said, "Hey, this is it. You are going to be special." Well, we didn't know it at the time. All we knew was, hey, the scripts were great, fabulous, and we loved them. You know, terrific stories.
That's the thing that's so satisfying about doing Star Trek. You know, very recently, Jimmy Doohan and Nichelle Nichols and I went on a tour of Cape Kennedy Kennedy Space Center at Cape Canaveral. And, you know, I'm in awe of those technicians, the astronauts, all the scientists there that are the true heroes of our time. They are the true pioneers of the space program. And yet they came up to us and told us that they took their inspiration from Star Trek. They saw Star Trek as youngsters, and we're the ones that inspired them to go into that arena. So the symbiosis here is both flattering, but it's also humbling.
I get a lot of mail from doctors that have gone into practice because of me, that were inspired by me, and other physicians that just want a picture. And I always sign to a physician, "Dear Dr. Shaw," for instance, from the Real McCoy to the Real McCoy, R-W-E-L and R-E-A-L.
I tell you, I was thinking the other day, you know, when we were making I think the first pilot, as I recall, I was on the MGM lot one day, and I'm talking about the mid-'60s. I think I have my time about right. And I was walking down the main street at MGM Studios on my way to the commissary. I don't know why I was there, but it was around the time of the first Star Trek pilot episode. And I saw these two figures walking down the street, coming toward me. Couldn't make out who they were. They were kind of backlit by the sun, one of these really movie shots, you know. And they get closer and closer, and I'm walking down closer and closer. And as they get closer, I began to sense there was something important about these two guys walking toward me. They were fairly tall. They were dressed in Western clothes, like they're making a Western. They were wearing their boots and spurs. They were clinking as they walked in step. Clink, 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 like that. As they got closer to me, I suddenly got a shiver because I realized that it was two old guys that as a kid I had gone to see in the movies. They were Randolph Scott and Joel McCrea. And they went clinking by me like a couple of giant. I had, whoa. And now I say to myself, wow, here we are. Over 20 years later, I wonder if some kid watches Shatner and Kelley and I walking down the street and probably has that same feeling. Here come these old guys, you know, still doing it.